Thank you very much, Natasha, and thank you very much, Tracy, for having organized this evening. And thank you all my friends here. Some of you I've met today, and I've taken a photo with you. I'm delighted to be with all of you today. Can I say that I'll be even more delighted when you go home, on your way home, you say to yourself, I have got something out of it. And that's what will really please me. At the end of my talk, I ask you all to ask as many questions as you like. We are all friends now. Give me the hard questions. Interrogate me. Question me and say, why did you do this? Why not this? Why not? I want you to really benefit out of this. In telling my story, I'm going to tell you about the highs and lows in my life. And I want you to share the pain, the agonies, the sleepless nights, and the nightmares. There's been plenty of it. The only reason I decided to write this book, friends, as if I've got nothing else to do, the only reason I decided to write this book, actually I didn't write it myself, it was written by a writer, is to give something back to society which has given me so much, is to give it back to a lot of individuals who had helped me along in my life and to have made me what I am today. Friends, I was born in a war-torn country, Malaysia, during Second World War, to parents who were in abject poverty. The little village I grew in had no running water or electricity, and my dad was an informant. He was aligned to the British. He had a little radio and he used to monitor the troop movements, the Japanese troop movements, and inform the general public what's happening. The Japanese heard about it. One day a jeep pulled outside our house, a very tiny house. Our Alsatian dog went to attack them. They shot it dead. They yelled to my father, called him in, gave him a big whack with a rifle butt, put him in that jeep, took him away. 142 went to prison, 2 came out alive. Dad was one of them. And the main reason is I had a mother, and if there's one way to describe my mother, she was fearless. She feared nothing. And she managed to do a lot to bring Dad out. At 27 years old, Mom had 7 children. Dad's gone, no money coming, the country at war, total lawlessness, no food. It's amazing. I am absolutely privileged to have been through that, friends. I'm absolutely privileged to have gone through that. It's that hardship, it's that pain, it's that agony, it's that suffering that makes you a better person. When the war ended in 1945, Dad was one of the 2 that was released. He was just skin and bone. Instead of going home, which is 18 kilometers away, what's this man do? He goes up and registers all his children in various schools, spends an hour and a half, doesn't race off home to have a good feed. That shows the emphasis on education, and I'll talk about that later on. I used to catch the bus to school. It's 18 kilometers to school and back, 18 kilometers there and 18 kilometers back. And I wasn't the best student in school. I was just a mediocre student. I did not really enjoy school, and I had to put up with it. I failed in school. Those days, if you did not pass your exams at the end of 1 year, you were kept in that same year. You don't go to the next year. So I failed in school. I suffered. After finishing high school, Dad had already programmed me that I had to come to Australia to study civil engineering. It was just told, you had to be a civil engineer. The other two brothers, one, you have to be a vet, the other one, you have to be a doctor. They all turned out to be that way. So I took a boat from Singapore, landed in Fremantle, stayed a couple of days, came across from Perth to Sydney. What a change, friends, what a change from a tiny village with no electricity or water to a booming city. Things were moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, just going on. Slowly I got used to it. I adapt myself to varying conditions. My wife will tell you that. I adapt to any varying conditions just like that. So I got used to it. And this was a game change for me in my life. I was totally independent. I was free. At 17 and a half, I had to think for myself. I had to work things out. But one thing that was ingrained to me by my mom and dad is, son, you have gone overseas. You've got to come back with that degree. That's it. That's your goal. I finished matriculation and went to University of New South Wales. I did find engineering very hard. A 4-year course took 6 years. I failed again. You want success? You have a lot of failures. I failed again and failed again. And finally I passed, I graduated. And my failures is my best teacher. One thing that you learn out of your failures is be resilient, be relentless, never give up hope, and don't ever have a never give up attitude in the pursuit of success. Just keep going on. Just keep going on. Tomorrow is going to be a better day. Sydney was not a multicultural society as it is today. 1960s, early 60s. Dad used to send me $70 or 35 pounds. It used to come first, second or third of each month. He was a very disciplined man. Not enough money to survive. What do? I learned to drive a taxi. Got to know Sydney very well, drove a taxi. Very comfortable. I had no difference in society. I was just like everybody else. Drove a taxi, got to know a lot more people. And when I was not driving a taxi, my landlord was an Irish gentleman who was extremely capable as a handyman. We used to buy second-hand cars at the auctions, go to the motor auctions, buy a car, come back, Barney would fix it up. Barney Joseph Bradley is his name. Fix it up, sell it, make a few dollars, I pay for my board and lodging. If that's not it, we used to buy transistor radios, sell it, make a quid, pay for the board and lodging, and so on and so forth. Anything to survive, friends. You are in an environment, you have no excuse, you just have to survive. You learn the art of survival, and that goes on right through your life. I finished university, but before I finished, every year I used to write to the registrar at the university and I say, sir, I can't pay my fees. Can you give me 6 months to pay? I will pay, but give me 6 months to pay. Every time he'll write back, a wonderful man, he'll write back and say, yes, you got an extension. Finally, when I finished, just before the graduation day, I rang up his PA. And I said to her, I would like to see the registrar. She said, do you still want an extension of time to pay your fees? I said, no. You'll be relieved. I finished. She was happy too. She gave me 10 minutes. You wouldn't believe this. The registrar spent an hour and 10 minutes with me. He was really fascinated. Here is a chap who would have just packed his bags and gone. But a message here, friends, be always grateful to the hand that fed you. Be always grateful. The learning experience at university taught me one thing: it's a value of education and the need for persistence, persistence, and persistence. In government circles, they call it public-private partnerships, the 3 Ps. Your 3 Ps: persistence, persistence, and persistence. Just don't give up. Just don't give up. I'll quote you here a quote from Calvin Coolidge, the 30th President of the United States. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men or women with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan "Press on" has solved and will always solve the problems of the human race. Well, that's it. That's what President Coolidge said. He was educated, but he said education alone will not solve your problems. You have to have that persistence and tenacity. Just hang in there, chaps. Just hang in there. Tomorrow will be a better day. Read the book. Read the book. After graduating in 1965, I worked for the Sydney Water Board as a civil engineer. And then I felt a bit guilty. I said, no, I have to go back and look after my parents who had supported me. They were getting old. So I went back and got married. My wife is here. Give her a hard time. She'll tell you all about it. I worked for an international firm of civil engineering consultants who only did World Bank and Asian Development Bank projects. And there I learned forward planning. We only planned and funded projects that had a feasibility study for 30 years. So that I learned a lot of things about forward planning, which has helped me in Springfield. After about 4.5 years, I was doing very well. The boss called me up and he said, we want to send you to open our Indonesian office. I was 32. What a gift. At 32, you go up to head the whole of the Indonesian operations. I said, Mr. Cox, that's his name was Cox. I said, I'll have to have a chat with my wife and I'll have to think about it. I went back the next day and said, I'm not taking this. In fact, I've decided to resign. I'm leaving the firm. And you can ask my wife. He wiped his tears. He rang her up and said, can you do anything to change this man's mind? Friends, I left the country. My wife was expecting her 3rd baby. And the baby is here. She was 6 months pregnant. I left her at home and came up to Perth, 1971. The Australia of 1971 was totally different from the Australia of 1960, 60, 65. We had a huge mining boom, exactly what's happening, and immediately it crashed. I came here thinking I would walk into a job with an Australian degree. There was no job at all for civil engineers, architects, surveyors. They were all just walking down the street. I rang the Commonwealth Employment Service and I said, what's the chance of a job? They said, none. I rang them again after 2 days because I don't accept anything no for an answer. But anyway, I rang up in 2 days afterwards. They said, I told you there's no jobs for engineers, architects, surveyors. I rang him again. He was a bit annoyed. He said, please, you've got a wife and 2 children and you're expecting a 3rd. She's expecting a 3rd. Go and register for the dole. So I dressed in my best suit. I said, this is good. Went up. The queue had about 35 people. Most of them, it was hot summer, Perth summer, hot. It was very hot, October. queue was moving very slowly. Those in front of me were in thongs, shorts and sleeveless shirts. The queue moved very slowly, and I said to myself, what has happened to my life? Over 6 weeks ago, I was offered the best job. I turned it down. I gave up everything and came here. What am I doing? I don't belong to this queue, chaps. I don't want to earn or receive money for which I have not worked. I got out of the queue. I cried and cried and cried like a child. Went up to the taxi stand, took a taxi and went to the flat. Next day, I realized that that degree was not a passport to success. I met an agent. He was very glad to see me, so I registered myself as a land agent, and again, that is a game change, a small game change. Instead of being a civil engineer, I'm now learning real estate. And I learned the art of selling real estate. And at the same time, I met a Swedish migrant, Bo Raymond. Bo said, tell you something, he said, Maha, look at this. Australia is going metric. This ruler, which is the one that we started off, I've been having it for 36 years, is metric on one side, imperial on the other side. He said, we will make a fortune. I said, good, that sounds good. So we ordered 2,000 rulers. And we went from one hardware shop to the other hardware shop, trying to sell them. Not much success, but one day I sold 13 of them. And I said, I have conquered the world, friends. I have conquered the world. And so that's what it is. When one door closes, you just say something else is going to open. Don't give up hope. Just believe in yourself. This goes on, and my wife joined me with the third child. She was born, and she was about a month old, so we had 3 children. And we did live in abject poverty. It was hard. There was no money coming in. But I used to go to work at 8 o'clock and come back at 5:30. Don't ask me what I did. I did all sorts of things. 8 o'clock, I was off to work. 5:30, I'll come home. One day, I pulled up at 5:30, and my wife said, come and see this letter. The letter was from the Perth Metropolitan Water Board. She said, read it. I read it. They offered me as a job as a civil engineer. And I put it aside. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not taking it. She said, please take it. Don't play business anymore. You've got 3 children to feed. They are young. They've got to go to school. Take it. So I took it. And reluctantly, I went to work. I went reluctantly to work. And my mind was always in the outside world, chaps, not in the public service. My mind was in the outside world. And I knew I was caged, but the outside world had all the opportunities. So I said to myself, I must get out of here. I talked to a chap who was also a fellow civil engineer, Ken Law Davies. And I said to him, we'll go out and build houses, build duplexes. We resigned and we left. That's a bit of a chance to take, but I just left. We had $17,000 between us. And friends, can I say, everything we touched went gold from then on for next 5 years. Everything we touched went gold. From a $17,000, our balance sheet was $7.5 million in 5 years. $7.5 million. This is 1981. That is 31 years ago. So you multiply that by 8 or 10 or whatever it is. We were very wealthy men. Ken came up to me and he said, I've met an American girl. I'm going, you asked me for 5 years. I've given you 5 years. I'm off. I tried to talk to him. He said, no, I'm off. I've got $2 million. I can survive for the rest of my life. He was off. And I kept on going. And my financiers and the solicitors advised me, you are doing so well that you got to go public. I went to the market with $14 million with a prospectus, raised $14 million, went through hell to raise it, raised it, had to return it back because of a technical fault, and the empire crashed. The whole empire crashed, and I was on my first journey to hell. I did go to hell, and I saw a lot of friends there. We were all burning. We were all burning. Now, the choice is to get out of hell. I had a principle in my life, and that is, if you owe anybody any money, you pay it back. So I had this moral commitment to pay it off. It was $42 million debt. I paid off something like about $32 million, and I had still a $10 million debt hanging. It took me 18 months. I was physically and emotionally drained. That process, physically and emotionally drained. Paid all that, and I was advised that just don't keep going anymore. You've done what you can. Have a creditors meeting. I had a creditors meeting, and I had a unanimous release from the creditors, including the Australian Taxation Office. The Australian Taxation Office, friends, do not vote at the creditors meeting. They abstain. I was a relieved person. I walked out. I had no more mortgages, and I was off. Then came a person in my life, Bob Sharpless, who is still my business partner. He joined me in 1984. He had no money. I had no money. He had written to me 2 years ago and said, I would like to join you. That was when everything was running hot. And he thought it was still running hot. But he didn't realize there was nothing happening. But he's a great, great guy. He had a civil engineering degree and an MBA. And he joins a man who is a negative millionaire. For those of you who do not know what a negative millionaire is, a person who owes millions more than he's worth. I said to Bob, Bob, I'm a negative millionaire, mate, but I tell you what, you are a future millionaire, and eventually we'll all be both millionaires. He said, that sounds good. We moved off from Perth to Brisbane. Bob came alone. He left his wife there for 3 months. She was a school teacher. And we rented a house in Bartley Street in Spring Hill. It's a two-bedroom wooden house. It's just an old wooden house, the cheapest house you could get in the market. It was our office, headquarters for Queensland. One room was Bob's. In the daytime, it was his office. Nighttime, that was his bedroom. And there we started the business. But friends, after 4 years, we had made about $9.5 million just doing deals and putting deals together. We had the expertise. When I left Perth, my solicitors, my firm of solicitors said they have taken everything from you, but they can't take anything from your head. What's in your head stays with you. I'll come back to that later on. You will have ups and downs. From that money, we lost within about 18 months, we lost about 8.5, left with about $500,000. Back again. You know the roller coaster, you go up and down. But one thing you know, when it goes down, it has to come up. Now, that's when Springfield came on the market, friends. 1992, Springfield came on the market. 7,000 acres, 23 k's outside Brisbane CBD. No one wanted to buy it. No one wanted to buy Springfield in 1992. All the major companies could have bought it with petty cash. After 9 months, it was still in the market. Can you believe it? It was in the market. I rang the agent and I said, what's happening? He said, nothing's happening. I've been expecting my commission for the last 3 months. Nothing's happening. I said, that's good, but I don't have any money, my friend. I'll talk to any of you later on, if you have time, about how to buy real estate with no money. We contracted that land for about $8 million for 9 months. Very little money exchanged, but there was a contract, a legal contract. The reason why Springfield was not sold or bought by anybody was for 3 reasons it had. Those of you who know the Ipswich area, 1992, the only thing that they could boast of was the state prison. That was the most expensive structure in that part of the world. It was socially and economically depressed, high unemployment, high crime rate, and all sorts of social issues. So nobody wanted to buy this land. Second, it had to have a major freeway, which in today's cost would be about $200 million. And third, only 5% of the land could be developed at all. So they said, we are not going to touch this. That's the last thing we want to get involved in. So I contracted to buy it. I then saw my planner, and I think he's the best in the country. I saw my planner, and I saw one of my experienced surveyors, and I said to them, fellas, what do we do? They looked worried. They looked really worried. They said, this is a hard one. This is a hard one, they said. But they said, give me 15 days, we'll come back. They came back after 15 days with a big smile. We've got the answer. What's the answer, chaps? Chop it up into 40-acre parcels, make $15 million and disappear. 40-acre parcels, 23 Ks from Brisbane CBD, you will do very well. I looked at them, they looked at me. I said, no, that's not what we are going to do. What are you going to do? Well, it's a bigger plan for this. Can I say, this is what I like to leave you with a message. Those of us who are not sculptors, chaps, we look at a large rock. What do you see? You see a big rock. But a sculptor looks at a rock, he or she sees something in it. They see a beautiful face in that rock. The face is inside that rock. They go out to bring it. That's what a sculptor does. Think of this. When you are faced with an opportunity, think of the solution, not the problem. So we saw this forest, and to me it was calling out, bring me out, I'm a city man, bring me out. Nobody believed in it. Went up to Moreton Shire Council, wonderful councillors, they were generally farmers and a couple of postmen and all that. They said, no, we can't see what you're trying to see. And they physically laughed behind me and they said, this man is mad. This man is mad. So they said, you go to the state government. They thought that might get rid of me. Go to the state government and see what the minister says. We went to the state government, and that's the time, those of you who know the Fitzgerald inquiry, Goss came into power after the Fitzgerald inquiry, and you had no chance of seeing a director general or the minister. They ran for cover. As soon as you said you're a land developer, that's it, you're finished. Anyway, we used a very, very influential and powerful surveyor, highly respected, and he introduced me to the minister. We went and saw the minister and said, sir, we want to do this. Or I didn't say sir, but said, minister, we want to do this. And he said, I don't know why, I don't think it works, but he said, just to please my colleague here, I'll drive up with a 4-wheel drive and have a look at it. He took a 4-wheel drive. This minister is still there. He's not a minister, he's out, and I'll give you the name later on. He took a 4-wheel drive, got lost, did not know where the land is, there was no roads to it. He came back and he was swearing to himself, and he said, who the dash would ever live here? My surveyor friend went and saw him again and said, minister, have a look at it again. So just to please him, this surveyor was involved in the design of centenary suburbs. So he called up his senior bureaucrat and said, tell me what we can do with this land. These blokes are not going to go away. The bureaucrat said, give us 15 days. He came back and he said, Minister, this is an out-of-sequence development. You can't approve it, sir. Exact words. I can give you the names of the minister, the planner, and the bureaucrat, and everybody. What do? We just kept hanging in there. Kept hanging in there. And then the government said, we have never ever approved a city in this country other than Canberra. And in order to get approval, you have to have a validating legislation and an act of parliament. They thought that was the end of us. That was just the beginning, chaps. And I used to go to these bureaucrats with my planners, and I try and convince them. You've got to respect the bureaucrats. They are paid by the government. They have got an obligation. They've got to look after the government. But we were in two different levels. We were on two different planets. We could not agree. They could not agree to allow us to do what we were trying to do. So I used to come back to the office and I used to say to my staff, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That was the challenge. You will find this in anything that you are trying to do. You will find that others do not agree with you, but you just keep going. And finally, the project was just about to be approved when Goss lost power. Borbidge came into being, and the Borbidge government took it to Parliament, but they delayed it for a year. And we went up to Parliament on that night. It was debated for 4.5 hours. As you know, we have 89 parliamentarians. Right at the last minute, when they were asked to vote, you know, chaps, we have 89 parliamentarians, government, opposition, and independents. All the 89 hands went up. And for the first time in the history of this country, a city was given approval unanimously by a parliament. It's an act of parliament today. I like to say something here because I missed this a while ago. When my surveyors came and said, you can make $15 million by just chopping it up, and then we took the other route. I have a philosophy, and you can go into YouTube and have a read of this. I have a very strong philosophy, and I like you to take this message home, friends. Chase success and money will follow. Don't chase the queen. Chase success and money will follow. Just be after to be successful, and money will follow. That's exactly what we do. So the project was approved, but in the meantime we were subdividing and selling land. 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. Things were going well. We were paying our bills and carrying on. Then came the hard time. The market dropped. Our debt was from 5.2 million, went to 9.2. The bank in Melbourne decided that they were going to call up all the loans related to vacant land. We were caught in that net, and we hadn't paid interest for about 15 months. They said, that's good, we'll get these fellas. They came up, saw Bob Sharpless and myself, and they said, you have got 30 days to pay your 9.2 million. How do you pay 9.2 when you've only got $50,000 in the bank, fellas? 30 days. That 30 days is the next journey to hell. Second journey to hell. Went to hell, my friends from the first journey were still there. Poor fellas. Anyway, in that 30 days, we managed to do a deal. Lendlease approached us, did a deal, and we paid off the bankers. Back again on the road. Got out of hell, came back. And chaps, this is a very interesting exercise of going in and out of hell. You get burnt, that's why my color is this. Today, the project has experienced $3.5 billion within Springfield alone by all the stakeholders. It has experienced 2.5 billion from the state government, not trying to help me, to get the major infrastructure and schools. 3.6 billion has been spent by the federal government for all external infrastructure. And these are the things that you got to remember: chase success and money will follow. And here, I'm very proud to say that in Springfield, one thing that we value most, there are 3 cornerstones to Springfield. One is education, the other is health, and the other is IT. In terms of education, it's very important for me. That's one gift that I can give to an individual. That's one way of adding human capital. Education, friends, is a currency of the future. Think of it. Education is the only currency that you can go and cash anywhere, whether you go to Beijing or Delhi or anywhere, New York, you can go and cash it. And education is the only currency that cannot be stolen from an individual. Think of the time when we lost all our money, but the chap said, the solicitor said, they can take all your money, they can do what they like with you, but they can't take what's in your head. So education, it cannot be stolen from an individual. Today, we have 10,300 students in Springfield. We have a university. Last year it was 8,700 students. And altogether about 8.5 billion has been spent by every party involved in it, directly or indirectly. It's moving at the rate of about $650 million per year. Again, think of the word chase success and money will follow, not chopping it up and quickly making 15 million bucks. Of course, you've got to go to hell once more. Now, we started the project with 6.5 and it's moving at about 650 million per year. It's a city in the making. And you know that when you have a failure, just pack your bags and keep moving. And have a very, very strong sense of self-belief. Believe in yourself, man. You are your best friend. You are with this friend 24 hours a day. You take this friend to bed every night. You are with this friend from birth to death. Trust your friend and be good to your friend. Don't speak bad about your friend. Believe in yourself. And don't ever, ever give up. And if anybody tells you to give up, give them up. Get away from them. Give them up. Have faith in yourself. We live in a great, great country. A country which is 2/3 the size of India and China combined in land area. India and China has 2.4 billion people. We have only 23 million. 1% of the population of China and India is what Australia has. We have all the natural resources the world needs very badly. 1% of the population of India and China enjoying this wealth. Another thing that's very important to me is we value human rights. I'm sure you all do. Very important for me, valuing human rights. We have a great climate. When they had winter in Chicago, last time when I saw in Chicago, the planes couldn't move for a few days. Heathrow Airport had the same problem. Some of the Scandinavian countries, the boats can't move for 3 months to 4 months. They're all locked down. What a great country we have. A country with 4,500 kilometers of pristine ocean frontage. What else you want? 1% of the population of India and China combined is owning this country. A great country. A great, great country, chaps. I'm so pleased. My wife is pleased, my children are pleased to be here. With all this, just believe in yourself. Don't ever, ever give up. Just hang in there. I'll tell you a story because I'm finishing off now. I had trouble trying to get hold of Peter Beattie. As you know, he was here for about 9.5 years. He had a major thing to do with Springfield. Peter Beattie was very hard to get hold of. So what do? I know when Peter Beattie goes on a plane overseas, on a trade mission, I go. I go with him. He wants businessmen to go with him. And you have to register, you have to be approved, and so on and so forth. So one day after having registered and paid my fees, I rang up his PA and I said, I want to sit next to Peter Beattie. Why? I want to have a chat with him about some of my projects. I want him to extend Centenary Highway and all those things. And she said, is your name Heather Beattie? I said, if you want me to, I can change it. Peter always travels with Heather. They're a very lovely couple. My eyes is always on them when I'm in the plane. And Peter knew about this. I've become a friend of his now. And Brisbane to Singapore, I wasn't on the plane. There was Heather. Singapore to KL, there was Heather. KL to Hanoi, he allowed me to sit next to him. Out comes the plan, show him all what we have to do. Now, do whatever you have to do. When you think you are doing the right thing, don't stop. And don't let anybody stop you. If you believe something is right and it's legal, don't stop, friends. I'll leave you with one saying from a very famous French philosopher, Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So think big and you'll be big. Thank you.